Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the piece from the AI generative artist known as the Glad Scientist. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about emphasis through contrast. We're going to talk about divine degrees of light. Then we're also going to talk about the incredible dreamscape born from the AI generative genesis. So let's jump right into it. So whenever you first see this piece, you're likely going to be caught by this streak of light or lightning here in the center region of the spatial composition. So you're kind of, it introduces these little bit of divine degrees of light. And what you'll see here is that it emphasizes itself very, very well through this light on dark contrast. So with that in mind, you see you're likely going to be caught by that first. Of course, it is the most apparent and most attention-seeking element within the spatial composition. But next, you see a kind of a subject here offset from that center streak of light. And this is our lone subject here. It looks like the character is wearing some type of gear that's reminiscent of techgear or punk tech gear. And you also see that the subject's head is kind of facing downward, maybe in an act of memoriam or memorial or grief or some type of thing there. And the reason I say that is because this piece was actually generated by AI using a poem. And so the poem that we have here is indulged in six selves, channel swapping networks of lost monks. Worshipping nothing, believing darkness, let dust seed these trunks. And so with that in mind, we do see that dark aesthetic, worshipping nothing, believing darkness, channel swapping networks of lost monks. So there's a sense of kind of darkness and being fractured here, swayed or maybe endlessly wandering within that as well. So whenever I take a look at that, this is created by OpenAI's DALL-E II. So this is an AI's interpretation of what this poem is requesting. And so whenever we take a look at this, we see that the subject's head is face down. There's a lot of darkness within the scene at hand. But, with that in mind, we also see some divine degrees of light as well. And what I mean by that is just these incredible streaks. Of course, light and darkness is always a very subtle, but even more apparent divine metaphor that people often turn to. But, regardless of that, that light really introduces a little bit of energy within the scene at hand. It's not an extremely energetic spatial composition. Of course, you do see that light proving some energy, but you also see a bit of energy in these little sporadic foliage or ink forms there. But with that in mind, it does feel like we're looking at some type of surreal dreamscape here, and I think that's incredibly intriguing. This isn't a very realistic. Like I said, we have what appears to be ink blots kind of drifting down, or it's some type of foliage or greenery, maybe something on the ground there, maybe a bush. It's hard to say for sure, but regardless of that, of course, it feels like we're in a surreal dream here, and that's incredibly interesting, and it's kind of an AI's interpretation of this poem, of course, but it's hard to say what we're in exactly. And what do you guys think this light is? Where does this light come from? How is it significant? And what do you guys see whenever you view this piece? Also, how do you feel when you view this piece as well? Just let me know down in the comments below. I'm really, really interested. So, like I said, this piece was created with this prompt, and DALL-E II is incredibly, incredibly intriguing because it's incredibly accurate, very, very, very accurate, probably the most accurate that we have that's at least a little bit accessible to the public. And so, like I said, you have that poem there, and normally people just request directly what they want to see from DALL-E II, but it's interesting because the poet slash artist who created this decides to do this instead of a simple wish. They put in a poem and see what happens. So this artist is actually doing a lot more of that as well, and we're looking very closely. So if you guys want to check that out, it is coming from the Glad Scientist. We have the written in the description below, and then we also have the piece on Instagram. You can go check that out and even see the artist's original profile as well. And so that's really, really interesting how people are now putting poems into the text prompts of AI generative art programs. It's incredibly important. It's hard to say what's coming next. And so, AI generative art just even more rise. Actually, today I saw the Daily Dose of Internet uploaded something about Midjourney. So incredibly historic. Definitely mass adoption is coming closer and closer day by day. And so this was coming from OpenAI's DALL-E II. DALL-E II is in private testing at the moment, mostly with creators online and some smaller artists as well. And so it is a private release, very limited release at the moment. Everyone is looking kind of on the outside, hoping that they can get their hands on this program. And the only really barrier or ceiling to access or skill ceiling to DALL-E II or any AI generative art program is your competency in vocabulary retention, as well as your kind of level of being articulate and writing as well. Because if you want to see a specific image, you have to know how to put that into the text form. And if you don't know how to put that in text form, then it's going to be very difficult. So if you really want to get into this, I would suggest writing as much as you can, and you'll really start to get a lot more vocab, a lot more retention there, and hopefully you can create the AI generative arts that you wish. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Go check out Glad Scientist's other works, doing a lot of really good stuff with DALL-E II. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. We talked a little bit about the surreal dream here, talked about the divine degrees of light, also emphasis through contrast in OpenAI's DALL-E II. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.